and I would wonder what it would be like to see R.E.M. live. And they played Birmingham, my hometown, on the 31st of May 1989 at the NEC to about 10,000 people, and it was about £8 a ticket. They were supported by the Blue Aeroplanes. I didn't go because I didn't have enough money, but I thought I'll get to see them the next time they come round. That'll be a couple of years. That'll be absolutely fine. It took me over 10 years until I saw R.E.M. after that. I had tickets to see them at the Wembley Arena in 1995, but Bill Berry had an aneurysm, which wasn't his choice, and they cancelled all the indoor UK shows for that tour. So I didn't see R.E.M. with Bill Berry. I saw them after Bill left. The first time I saw them was at London Earls Court on, I think, the 22nd of June 1999. End of the year, end of the Millennium Blues. But Green is where I came in. This album, I wouldn't say it changed my life, because what I can do is I can talk about every album and say, oh, it changed my life. The first time I heard this band changed my life. And the first time I heard this band was actually the videos for It's the End of the World as We Know It, Fall on Me, and the one I love on MTV's 120 Minutes. And then the Green videos and the tape of the album, which ran out halfway during the last track, which is called Untitled, officially called Untitled, but it may have a different title, I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to talk about why Green is significant. The first big thing of significance is that the band left their label, IRS, and they moved to Warner Brothers. And the reason that they did that was, well, there were lots of reasons why. Peter Buck said he would pay to 200 Americans in Germany who were staggered that the band were playing to 200 people in Germany when they'd be playing to 20,000 in the US. They played Finland to 500 people, and he said, well, I went into the record shops in Finland and I couldn't find any of our albums, so no wonder we were only playing to 500 people. And this, I think, was one of the issues that R.E.M. had with IRS, is IRS were operating at the height of their scale with R.E.M, and that scale didn't reach as far as parts of the world that the band wanted to play in. And I completely understand, if you're in a band and you're working really, really hard and you're making music and you think that music is fantastic, you want people to hear it, you want people to buy it, you want someone to go into the record store, in the days when they had the record store, and be able to pick up the tape or the vinyl or the CD and just be able to buy it and to listen to it there and then. Well, obviously, you couldn't stream music in the days before the internet was invented. So this was the only way, really, that they would sell records, would be to have records in the record stores. And they felt that IRS couldn't do it. They moved to Warner Brothers. And the reason, the way they described it, is that at IRS, their calls didn't go to the red phone. The red phone being the red bat phone in the Batcave, the phone call that you make to the person that makes things happen and makes things change. And with IRS, they couldn't get that scale. With Warner Brothers, they could. Also, Warner Brothers did offer them a lot of money, and I have no problem whatsoever with the artists I like being successful, playing big places, and making tons of money, because there's certainly plenty of people that make terrible music that have no compunctions about being as rich as God himself, or herself, depending on your point of view. So Green was the first album that was released on Warner Brothers Records, and it was quite a change. Now, as I've mentioned before, in the previous episode when I talked about R.E.M, I talked about their earlier albums, and as is absolutely typical, I went to London and bought some records. That in itself is not worth mentioning. But I did manage to find the Talk About the Passion 12-inch single, which has some of the tracks from Chronic Town on the B-side. I also found the vinyl versions of Fables of the Reconstruction here, which that was £10 well spent, and Life's Rich Pageant Indeed, again £10 well spent. I bought these on CD in the 90s when I decided it was time to listen to all the R.E.M records and not just the ones that had just come out. I had an incomplete knowledge of them. I had a huge tape library of my friends' records which I'd recorded because I knew I was going to buy them at some point. I just couldn't get round to it just yet. Green is the first album of R.E.M's that I lived and breathed and experienced as it happened. And I think it's an amazing album. It has three distinct personalities. inside it. The first one is the direct poppy songs like Pop Song, Get Up, Stand, straightforward, easy, accessible songs with direct lyrics. And this is, I think, one of the things that brought me into the band at this point, more than Document or the other material, is that Michael Stipe wasn't hiding behind layers of allegory or abstract meanings or lyrics that he didn't even know what those lyrics were. You know, he was writing pieces of work that communicated ideas, feelings, emotions, thoughts, concepts, and I was able to listen to this album and to connect to those lyrics. And as you probably know, I'm a really strong words guy when it comes to words in songs. I want to understand the words. I want to have that line of communication between myself and the artist. And all art is about communicating ideas, thoughts, concepts, and emotions between human beings. Language is a skill that humans have far evolved beyond any other animal that I know of, apart from possibly dolphins. And so, therefore, to me, language is incredibly rich. You can probably tell by how much I talk. And Green was the album where I felt like I got an insight into how Michael Stipe and the band thought and felt. You know, at this point, the band were very much four corners of a table, and they were all working together to prop it up and to build something new on those foundations. The three different types of songs. The first one is the direct poppy song from Pop Song 89, Get Up and Stand. The second type of song kind of taps into the vein that they had on Document, which is a kind of like a harsher, harder, more abrasive sound with songs like Turn You Inside Out and World Leader Pretend. And then the third type of song was a more kind of direct, plaintive, emotional number. Things like You Are the Everything, I Remember California, Hair Shirt. You know, these are powerful songs which really kind of had a lot of meaning to me. And there's also three meanings behind the name of the album, Green. I think green is traditionally seen as the colour of naivety, of innocence. You know, the idea that someone's a little bit green is that they haven't seen the world, they haven't got guile yet. You know, they believe what they're told. The second one about green, green is the colour of money, and green is the colour of pounds and pence and dollars and cents, and that's a third one. And then the third one is around the environmental impact. Although it's very early days, climate change wasn't a word, but people were talking about things like I think one of the songs on the tour was dedicated to the Exxon Corporation after the oil spill in 1989, and green was a big environmental theme, I think, which comes out through the album. So the album's quite grounded, so it reflects really three concepts in the lyrics as well. The first one of innocence, the second one of money and commerce and power, and the third one of the environment and nature. And it's in all of the songs. It's just a fantastic title for the album. In fact, the only trick they missed was not making the cover green, but they made it a kind of orange. And if you look at the cover, by the way, what you'll see is it reflects the earth and mankind as well. So the cover there is a photograph of leaves, and yet in the insert here we've got an embossed picture of some power pylons, by the way. And Pylon were the name of a very popular band that at one point were competitors to R.E.M. on the Athens scene. And you flip over the other side, and there you've got what looks to be, you know, some kind of image of an abstract image of a mechanical instrument, but also the earth itself, the environment. So there's two ways in which you can analyse this cover. Effectively, it's got two front covers, much like Fables of the Reconstruction of the Fables. And this album is I think, one of my absolute favourites of R.E.M's. It's the album that propelled them from being a good band to being a great band. And I think they took away, you know, the layers and the armour. In some respects, they stood quite naked when they were making the record. So the songs, as I've said, quite direct. So Pop Song 89 is the first song that opens the album. I have a brown cassette single in the card case somewhere on these shelves. I couldn't find it when I was looking. You'll have to trust me that I do have it. It's backed with an acoustic version of Pop Song 89, and it has this fantastic deconstructionist lyric which kind of talks about anodyne conversation lines. It's almost like opening a conversation with the listener. So the first lyric is, you know, hello, I saw you, I know you, I knew you, I think I can remember your name. Hello, I'm sorry, I lost myself. I think I thought I was somebody else. Should we talk about the weather? Should we talk about the government? And obviously, talking about the weather is a very, very British thing. But talking about the weather, talking about the government, is tying in very clearly with the environmental and political themes that the album has, as well as obviously the green of the three layers of the title. And I think this is a fantastic song to open the album with. It's the only natural choice to open the album with. It's also the only natural choice to play at the live shows, and they opened a number of shows with Pop Song 89. I think I saw them at Brixton in 2003, and I think they opened with Pop Song 89 on one of the shows. But at this point, it's a fantastic opening track. The second one is Get Up, and Get Up is again another direct, straightforward, not necessarily complicated pop song, which dealt with two kind of conflicting ideas. And there's a backing vocal from Mike Mills. And I mean, R.E.M. are very lucky to have three people in the band at this point that were capable of being lead vocalists in Michael Stipe, Mike Mills, and Bill Berry. To be able to sing two counterpointing lines, so where one voice sings dreams they complement my life, the other one is dreams they complicate my life, and there's a a layered way of wordplay inside the album that makes the album much richer than the somewhat abstract mumbling of some of the earlier songs. Sorry, earlier songs, I love you, but I don't love you quite as much as I love these type of songs. And you can also hear it in the music as well. So when Peter Buck is writing the guitar parts, and the rhythms and bass lines are coming from Mike and from Bill, there's a sense of those abstract spindly lines, the complicated arpeggios, which Peter Buck was writing, which were very heavily influenced by Big Star and the Velvet Underground and Gang of Four and Wire and other kind of bands like that. They're much more simple, they're much more direct, they're much more straightforward, more accessible. James Dean Bradfield from the Manic Street Preachers has a theory about why bands become big, and his theory is if the milkman or the postman can whistle it or sing it, it's going to be a hit. Now, with the best will in the world, and no matter how many years I've loved some of the early R.E.M. albums, I would really struggle to sing or whistle King of Birds. I mean, I'd struggle to whistle anything, but I'd struggle to sing King of Birds as I was walking down the road. It's just not a song that sits in my head. Whereas the melodies in here are abstract. Not abstract, they're direct, they're simple, they're very easy. R.E.M., you could say R.E.M. became dumbed down if you were uncharitable. I think R.E.M. became more direct, and they took off the layers of armour, and they showed their heart with this album. Now, the third song, You Are the Everything. This one is a great song. I mean, it's one of the songs on this album that has the most meaning to me. Sometimes I feel that I can't even sing. I'm very scared for this life. I'm very scared for you and for me, and the voices talking somewhere in the house. Now, these lyrics are nowhere near as abstract as some of the other ones. They're talking about emotions, about feelings, about ideas, in a way that Stipe has never really addressed quite so blatantly in other songs. Um, and a really pivotal moment for me, actually, was when I saw an MTV broadcast of the live concert movie Tourfilm, when they showed You Are the Everything on there. I recorded it off MTV's 120 Minutes one Sunday night in late 1990. And I was like, You Are the Everything is the 14th song on here. And I was watching it and I was like, my God, this band are incredible. And it felt like I had an insight into a secret, even though the band were playing arenas and the tour show was pretty damn big, and they played a lot of shows at this point. So You Are the Everything is an incredibly important R.E.M. song to me, as indeed is The Wrong Child. Now I'm leaping ahead into the middle of side 2, or the beginning of side 2, with The Wrong Child. I really connected with the song The Wrong Child, and the reason being is that I felt like I was the wrong child. Now, I'm a twin, and when we were born, we weren't expected. My mum was expecting one child, not two. Medical technology didn't tell you that you could have two children. So there was a letter that my mum wrote to her sister, and she said, "I hope it's not twins." And it felt to me that not that we were unwanted, but if my parents had had the choice, they would have had one child instead of two. And obviously, my brother also has feelings around this, because he could feel, well, actually, I was unwanted. From my perspective, I felt that I was second choice in some respects. I did feel like I was the wrong child, and I did feel like I was a liability that they hadn't necessarily wanted. Now, this isn't where I was expecting to go with this, but this is why the song "The Wrong Child" has a great meaning to me. I felt like I was the wrong child. Like, my parents would have been quite happy if they just had one child, and that one child, if that child hadn't been me, they'd have been quite happy with that as well. My brother has some very different opinions to me about this, but our lives went in two very different paths when we were younger, and um, he had opportunities, or he had experiences that perhaps you might think would groom him for the type of success. So when you're younger and you think, well, I've got to go to a good school, I've got to get good results, I've got to go to a grammar school. If I get private tuition, that might help me pass my exams and get better results. So I think my parents invested their ambitions into my brother, and they kind of saw me as the child that wasn't going to succeed. Now, my dad said a very cruel thing to me once. He said, "You're a plodder. You just turn up and do the work." And talking about my brother, he said, he doesn't have to plod. He can just do it without having to work. And yeah, thanks, Dad, for I remember that 30 years later, um, and he was wrong. Not the first time, not going to be the last time either. But I was like, you know what? If you're a good parent, you don't say things like that to your children. So I very definitely got the feeling that I was perhaps, certainly when I was younger, regarded as a disappointment and regarded as an unwanted child. So to me, the song "The Wrong Child," I felt like I was the wrong child. And the school that I went to, it's going to sound big-headed, but there were some stupid people at my school, and I was one of the smarter kids at my school, and I did feel like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was the wrong child. Um, I did feel that I was always a square peg in a round hole, and that somehow, if you were too good at something, if you were too smart, that you stood out and that you were victimized and you were attacked, possibly because some people were threatened by you, but also because, I wasn't the fastest, fittest kid in the school, and and obviously I wore glasses, and, kids will pick on you for any reason that you can. So I felt very much like I was the wrong child for years and years. And what I knew is, I knew that that feeling wasn't true. I wasn't the wrong child. I was the best me that I could be. And when I listened to the song, and I kind of thought, he's singing about a kid like me. He's singing about someone that doesn't fit in, someone that doesn't belong, someone that is the wrong child in the world that they're living in. And I very much felt, not a body dysmorphia, but I felt a spiritual dysmorphia. I felt that the person that I was forced to be by the environment and circumstances that I was growing up in was not the world that I wanted to live in, and it wasn't the person I wanted to be. I was, the options that I had when I was growing up, really, there were four career options. You worked at the chocolate factory, you worked at the car factory, you worked at the sauce factory, the HP sauce factory, which had a chimney shaped like a HP sauce bottle, or you were unemployed. You didn't have options. You didn't have ambitions. You couldn't go off and create something. You couldn't be creative. You couldn't work with your brain. You had to work with your hands, and that was what you were. You were just going to be a pair of hands on a factory line for the rest of your life. That was the world that I was given when I was a child, and I kind of looked at that and I went, that's not enough. That's not me. And when you spend time in Birmingham, which by the way is an industrial town, that is basically being in a state of managed decline at the time. It was being run down by the Conservatives because it wasn't profitable. They were shutting libraries, closing schools, making life difficult, making life hard for people, and they didn't care because the people were never going to vote for them anyway. So what was the point of spending any money on them? Spend money on the people that might vote for you and might give you power. When I was growing up in Birmingham, you understand why bands like Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and Wolfsbane and Led Zeppelin happen from that part of the world. The reason being is it's hard, and your dreams are crushed, and you are turned into an economic unit of production. I should have had a drink before I started. And that was why I felt I was the wrong child. And that's why that song had a big meaning to me. Going back onto side 1 of the album, song 4 is Stand. Again, that's probably at that point at least the most political song which R.E.M. had made, about standing up for the place where you live and work and wondering why you hadn't thought about it before, which was chosen as a single. And the 5th track is World Leader Pretend. World Leader Pretend, I misled you. I misspoke. World Leader Pretend is the only song, by the way, up to, I think, the later album, the release maybe of Up, is the only R.E.M. song that has the lyric printed on it. So the lyric is printed in white on very pale purple here, the lyric to World Leader Pretend. And it's a song about politics and power and how it corrupts you, and how you build a world in your own mind that exists, and if you can shape the world and you can shape reality to match that, then you are the world leader. Pretend. It's a brilliant song, and they've played it live until right till the end of their live career. R.E.M. did. And then you flip side 2 over, and you've got The Wrong Child, which I've spoken about at length. You've got Orange Crush, and Orange Crush is probably again the most political of the songs on the album, alongside World Leader Pretend. It's not really poppy, but it is very direct. It's a fast, high-octane rock number, and from a lyrical perspective, it kind of occupies the same territory as U2's Bullet the Blue Sky. It's a political song that rocks. Orange Crush, I think, took its title from Agent Orange, which was the name that was used for a form of napalm in the Vietnam War in the late 60s and early 70s. You have to remember that when America pulled out of Vietnam in 1975, it was only 14 years before Green was released. And, 14 years ago from today was 2007, and that doesn't feel like that long ago at all. And then you go 14 years before that, and then you get to 1959, and Elvis is just making 7-inch singles at 78 out of Sun Records. So it's very, time has collapsed into now, and it operates on a completely different scale. Vietnam was both ancient history and very recent, and you had people that were maybe 25, 22 when they were in Vietnam. If they came out there in 1974, by the time this was released, they were 37, 41, and they had a whole life ahead of them. Now, when I was younger, I thought Phil Collins was middle-aged in about 1989, and he was probably only about 35. Whereas obviously now he's probably 60, 70 something, I don't know. But I looked at him and I thought, that mate, you're half dead. Also, of course, he was terrible, by the way. But when I was listening to this, and I was kind of thinking, well, actually, the people that were in Vietnam were about 40, but to me, because I was 1, 2 when America pulled out of Vietnam, to me it was as far away in history as the First World War and the trenches and buzz bombs and rickets and high seas piracy and Napoleon. It was an abstract concept which I had no memory of whatsoever. So Orange Crush is a song that the band played live right up to their last tour, and it was probably their first big hit in the UK, as mentioned by the 7-inch single, which I kind of talked through there. Track 8 is Turn You Inside Out. I know I've seen them play this live. The problem is I've seen R.E.M. live 9 times, and I haven't seen R.E.M. live for 13 years. So I don't quite remember exactly which songs of theirs I've seen and which songs I haven't without checking with the internet, and that's not going to be very much fun. But I've seen them play "Turn You Inside Out" live, and there's a song that's a song about personal politics as well. The line where it goes, I could turn you inside out, but I choose not to do," and then the counterpoint vocal melody from Mike Mills, much like Get Up or Stand or something, is that instead of singing "Dreams They Complement and Complicate My Life," for "Turn You Inside Out," it says, "I believe in watching you, I believe in what you do," and there's some very effective use of dual layered language and interplay there. So you think you know what the words are, and then you realise there's something else completely by a repetition that changes the meaning completely. Now the last two official songs on the album are "Hair Shirt" and "I Remember California." And "I Remember California" feels to me like it's almost a hymn to a world that no longer exists. Kind of like going, well, I remember when I was a child, and I remember California, and I remember growing up there, and everything that goes with it, and the music that sits alongside it is very carefully designed to be, how to describe it, evocative of classic American rock. Things like people sitting on porches with acoustic guitars playing Lynyrd Skynyrd and all that stuff. And then we've got the album comes on two sides. There's an air side here, which is side one, and then metal side, which is side two. And of course, me being me, I forgot to check the sides of the vinyl. I told you that the first track on side two was "The Wrong Child." That is complete hogwash, because the last song on side one is "The Wrong Child." Now, when I hold this, it's a 1980s Warner Brothers pressing. Not that this is necessarily particularly interesting, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's very thin vinyl. The paper is very thin as well. As I said, when you pick up original pressings of albums, especially from the 70s and from the late 80s, early 90s, from the 70s there was the OPEC oil crisis, which was used to great effect in Superman 3, the best Richard Pryor movie, and yes, it's better than Lost Highway. Don't complain at me about it. You know Superman 3 is better than that. But the very, very thin vinyl, very, very thin paper, crinkled easily, because the companies wanted to make as much money as possible. There was a fuckload of money. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. There was a lot of money floating around the industry. A lot of guys got very, very rich and were unashamed about it, whilst the artists themselves made very little money. And there is an artist that I am going to be talking about in future episodes, Matt Johnson from the didn't make anywhere near as much money as everybody else that never recorded a song made off him. A lot of people got fat off his work, and he didn't. But Green is an amazing album, and I adore it. It's had a great place in my life. It's been a friend for the past 32 years. This album, very, very good. Strongly recommend it. Now, Green came with a number of singles releases. I have to check the catalogue numbers because I was buying these singles as and when they came out. So so the first single, which I've got Pop Song 89 on an American cassette, but the first 12-inch I've got is Stand, which contains a photograph from the live shows of the period. And this is a 12-inch here, which is backed with the acoustic version of Pop Song 89 and a song called Skin Tight, which is previously unreleased, which was recorded in Orlando, Florida on April the 30th, 1989. That show will become important later on, but Skin Tight is I think it's a cover version. It's a fairly insubstantial, funky type instrumental. It's the type of song that bands can do in their sleep without even thinking about it. It's the type of song that you listen to, like Greensleeves or something, and you listen to it and you go, man, I didn't even know that was... I've heard that song, but I have no idea where it is. And then the second single, which I've got from the album, is the 7-inch single here of Orange Crush, which was the special limited edition 7-inch box set in its Ecology tour poster. It's called the Green Package. It features a sticker on the front. Let's have a look and see what's inside. Well, we have got Orange Crush there, the 7-inch single backed with a cover version of Ghost Rider, a song by Suicide. So I saw Suicide supporting the Stooges at the Hammersmith Odeon in 1989. And this is the poster which I saw on my friend's wall. It is absolutely enormous. This is the Green Tour poster. What you can see there is full heads of hair on Mr. Stipe and lots of hair everywhere else. And that was, you know, on the wall there alongside the with blue tack on the other end. And green is backed with some information there from the British Trust of Conservation Voters, Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace. You know, the band were clearly putting their heart on their sleeve around the green element of it, and you know, being ecologically conscious. Now, I had a comment the other day around me talking about politics. R.E.M are a political band, and at some point we have to talk about their political views, because otherwise we're missing a huge part of the story. In the same way that when we watch the X-Men films and we talk about maybe the search for the cure, those X-Men films are around, amongst other things, they are films that directly address using superheroes as an analogy, things like ethnic cleansing and the gay cure, conversion therapies and all that other stuff. You know, you can't live in a world without being aware of politics. R.E.M were definitely living in the same world as everyone else. So I've mentioned before a show at Orlando, Florida in April 1989. Here was a bootleg LP from the time. Oh, no, it wasn't actually. It was released in 2015. Limited to 500 copies apparently. This is a bootleg of the Orlando, Florida, April 1989 Westwood One radio broadcast. A total of 25 songs were broadcast over various radio broadcasts from that show. This is a highlight of 12 of them on a vinyl LP. But I also bought bootleg CDs. Of the bootleg CDs that I bought, this is probably the most complete one from that. That is the Orlando 1989 radio broadcast on KTS Records. And KTS stood for Kiss the Stone, and they were an Italian label that traded in radio broadcasts, soundboard recordings, and this has 20 songs from the radio broadcast there, whereas this version, which was the later commercial release that filled the copyright gap, only has 19 songs on, but it has, you know, 19 of the 20 songs that are on this bootleg CD. If you pick up a good quality recording of the Green Tour, Orlando is almost definitely, well, the show that you are going to hear. There was also a official concert VHS movie. This is the DVD edition of R.E.M's Tourfilm. Most of it was filmed at the penultimate show in Greensboro. But there was a number of other songs from other nights that were interspersed in it, so it was shot over 4 or 5 nights, although most of the audio comes from Greensboro, and it misses probably about half an hour of the show. The other thing I will say about Tourfilm is the tour that the band put forward for this album was, I think revolutionary is probably the wrong word, but it was very advanced. It was a kind of like a mixed media presentation. The band had films that played in the background behind them. The films gave instructions to the crowd. For example, there was a section where it would detail a series of pre-show instructions which the band members wanted to make clear to you. Instructions like, you know, be careful and courteous of everyone around you. Show respect and courtesy for those around you. Do not throw things, hurtle missiles, as someone may get hurt. Do not wait for the quietest moment in the quietest song to yell Radio Free Europe, as Mike Mills doesn't like that. Obviously that text comes from this useful book here. The tour had a couple of incidents on it which are worth mentioning, one of which is when Bill Berry started the tour in Europe. He came out in a rash and hives, and what he had was some bizarre infection which is called Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever, which he got from a tick bite whilst gardening, and the doctor in Germany was confused and gave him antibiotics hoping they would work, and he gave him exactly the right one. Obviously if he'd got Rocky Mountain spotted fever whilst he was in Athens, the doctors would have seen it far more often and would have solved the problem straight away. So it is by luck and luck alone that Bill Berry survived that, because untreated Rocky Mountain spotted fever can be fatal. Allegedly, I wouldn't know. I have no intention on ever being bitten by a tick, or in fact anything ever, because I'm a complete wimp. So that's the Green tour. Now there was a couple of other things which I'm going to mention. I'm going to mention the 25th anniversary version of Green that was released on CD in a box set. You will have seen this format of box set on the previous episode when I was talking about Document and Life's Rich Pageant. Unsurprisingly, it comes in a box, and you open it, and there's all the people. So there's the booklet, which replicates the original booklet with just some minor changes and some additional text. There's a remastered version of the album there, including song 11. There's a live concert recorded at Greensboro. So this is 80% of the show. And the reason it's 80% of the show, not 100% of the show, is because CDs have a length of 80 minutes, which ties in with the length of a certain classical piece of music, which I can't remember. Effectively, it's near enough a complete live show from the tour recorded at Greensboro, most of which was used as the soundtrack for the Tourfilm film and DVD. And there was also a poster. Let's see what this poster is now, gang. Does this poster look familiar? Well, kids, pop kids, the answer is probably. It is a smaller version of the same shot that's used for the Ecology tour poster that comes in the Orange Crush single, but it doesn't have on the back the information around Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, the guys that hug trees, or anything like that. And 4 small art cards, arty pictures of American musicians standing moodily in a field somewhere in America in 1988. So that is Green for you. Record Store Day, that terrible thing that's happening again on Saturday, also gave one of the rare CDs. Almost everything on Record Store Day is released on vinyl these days. This is 5 songs recorded live at Greensboro, and this is the 5 songs that wouldn't fit on the 80-minute CD in here. So these are So Central Rain, Feeling Gravity's Pull, Strange, King of Birds, and I Remember California. And when we look at the track listing that we've got for this, Feeling Gravity's Pull, I Remember California are on here, and you can get the rest through there. So it's not easy necessarily to get it. Now the 7-inch singles from Green also got a CD release on this, the automatic box that was released in 1993 in Germany. The 4th CD is a compilation CD called B-Sides from Singles Action Green. Singles Action Green is a 7-inch box set of 4 7-inch singles from the album, which is backed with Ghost Rider, which we've got the 7-inch of Orange Crush, Fun Time, a cover version of the Iggy Pop and David Bowie song from 1977, a track called Memphis Train Blues, which is less than 2 minutes of instrumentally widdly-wooing, which R.E.M can do in their sleep, and then Pop Song 89, the acoustic version, as alongside a live version of Everybody Hurts, which doesn't quite fit, and I don't quite know why it's on this box set. Now what you will hear is, when you look at the reissues that R.E.M have released, none of the B-sides are on the reissued versions of the albums. They've kept all the B-sides separate. So every bonus CD, all the extra audio which R.E.M have put out on these reissues, none of it has been B-sides, with the exception of some of the songs recorded at Greensboro, which were used on some of the CDs from the Out of Time album. But that's the next R.E.M episode that I'll talk about. But by and large, none of the B-sides, no studio B-sides, has yet appeared on the bonus tracks that I can think of. Certainly not in the form which is a demo. The final version of, I don't know, let's say some of the B-sides which were on the demos for Life's Rich Pageant or Fables are on the demo CD, but the B-side versions aren't. The B-sides are proper recordings as opposed to demo versions, and there are no circulating demos that have been officially released for Green Murmur or Reckoning, even though copies of rough mix cassettes of the Murmur material is out there circulating on the internet, and we know it exists. The last thing that the band did before the release of their next album was a perhaps unexpected album, not under the name of R.E.M. The name of this band is Hindu Love Gods, and the Hindu Love Gods feature Bill, Peter, and Mike Mills alongside the now sadly deceased Warren Zevon, and I think Warren sang the song Werewolves of London. This is a collection of cover versions. So if you were with mates in a garage, with your mates in a garage playing garage rock for shits and giggles and beers, these are pretty much the songs which you'd be playing. Songs like cover versions of Walking Blues, Travelling Riverside Blues. You can tell I'm reading off the back here. Raspberry Beret, Manish Boy, Wang Dang Doodle, and Vigilante Man. You know, all songs which are well-known tootly pootly 12-bar blues classics. It sounds like exactly what it is, which is a bunch of mates, 3/4 of whom happen to be in R.E.M, playing cover versions for fun for a few days in a studio. It lacks all of the mystery of R.E.M. It lacks all of the air of essential, necessary, compelling, grab you by the scruff of the neck. This is an important song. It's a bunch of blokes pissing about for fun, and it's great fun, but it's not worth much money. You know, don't pay much money to listen to the Hindu Love Gods. It's a fun collection of basically cover version B-sides with a guy that isn't Michael Stipe singing. Sorry, Warren. I know you're not here to defend yourself, but I'm an R.E.M fan, not a Warren Zevon fan. And it's an okay song. It's an okay album, but it's not worth big money. It's not worth spending a lot of money on to get, unless if you're the type of person that absolutely has to track down every single R.E.M thing ever. Oh God, you've got to buy this. But if you're not, then listen to it on streaming, and then maybe think about buying it for £1.26 off Amazon, because that's probably how much it is. Anyway, that brings us up to speed with the end of the Green era. I'm going to talk about, next time I talk about R.E.M, I'm going to talk about Out of Time. I'm not going to talk about Green. I think Green is a fantastic record. I love it to bits. It's a very important album to me. It changed the way I saw parts of the world, and it was the first album where I think some of the bands that I liked, and this is in no way a criticism of those bands, they covered their lyrics in double meanings. They covered their meanings in chance and circumstance and clouds and to try and make it not obvious what they were singing about. And yet when I hear Green, I hear sincerity. I don't hear the kind of blustering bullshit stadium rock that you get with Simple Minds, where the words aren't really about anything very much at all. That's later Simple Minds, by the way, after about 1987, when they started doing Belfast Child. Everything after that, absolute dross. This is a sincere album where the band wear their hearts on their sleeves, and they're comfortable and they're confident in that, and they just do a great record. It's been a friend to me for 32 years, and it will be friends to me for the rest of my life. Green is a brilliant R.E.M album, and I have no compunctions about telling everyone that this was where the band went from being really good to absolutely great, and they stayed that way right through to the end. I'm going to wrap up here. Be lovely in the comments, and I will talk to you again some other time about some other band. Who knows where, who knows when. Thank you, and see you soon. Stay beautiful. Bye.